Hello everyone and welcome to Been Watching, where I talk about what I've been watching, this time covering what I saw in August, starting with Metropolis. No, not the classic black and white film, but the 2001 anime based on the Osamu Tezuka manga. Private Eye Shunsakuban and his nephew assistant Kenichi follow the trail of a criminal into the futuristic city of Metropolis. However, after running into the lifelike android Tima, the PIs uncover the conspiratorial secrets that serves as the foundation of this supposed utopia. It's beautiful, very colorful, not exactly typical to your envisioning of a neo-futuristic city. It lifts inspirations from what seems like the 1920s, giving it a classic feel. I also like how toony or Tezuka-y the characters look. It made me think of how a dramatic anime now would probably pick a more cool look, but by sticking to these toony caricature-esque characters, it shows confidence that it can convey its heavy tone. I also got a kick out of the direction. Like I said, it's not your everything's chrome in the future sort of future. It lifts from classic architecture, and also that goes for the music. It's very jazz oriented, and combining those things along with the detective plot, it has a noir feel. It's a familiar and classic feeling future. Shifting to more of a negative, the two leads are just okay. I didn't have too much of a strong reaction to them. They're more so the eyes through which the viewers can see the setting, rather than interesting characters. That said though, nearing the end when the detective has gathered all the clues and gets to point his finger with full clarity over the situation, he got pretty cool. I really got invested into one of the antagonists, Rock though, who has a burning hatred for robots. He's unemotive, unflinching towards any robot he kills, but the way his father figure cruelly treats him, even refusing to refer to himself as his father figure despite adopting him from a war zone, made me feel empathetic towards him. These complexities made him probably the best character of the film. It's an interesting world between the detectives, the politics and president, the mysterious skyscraper and the billionaire behind it, and also a rebellion against the robots and the robots' social structure. There's a lot going on, and it's all paced so well. I was surprised that all this was in one manga. It felt like a living, breathing world, which is high praise for sci-fi. There's a lot of ideas to latch onto, one of which I think of is the Mardukes who kill any robots who try to ascend to different classes of the city. Now, it's immediate what ideas they're supposed to evoke. Even the Private Eye, the first thing you hear referring to them is him saying they look like a bunch of fascists. But even so, it's an interesting sort of fascism. The Mardukes are not an extension of government like fascism has usually been done throughout history. They are a private group. It's privately funded and is only able to exist because robots are allowed no rights. There are also the citizens who hate the robots for having taken their jobs, which evokes ideas like the Industrial Revolution and even today with AI. But, and this is sci-fi, I don't consider this a spoiler since most sci-fi goes into this territory anyway, the robots are sentient, so the poor people resenting them for taking our jobs reminds me of another thing. So you can draw ideas like AI or even immigration from this. But that's the thing that I love. Even if ideas in this movie are lifted from the real world, they do not 100% reflect it. Metropolis has parallels to our world without being an exact mirror of it. And in doing so, you're able to process these ideas as they are, compartmentalizing them as the parts rather than a whole that you see in this world you live in. So it's able to maintain the integrity and uniqueness of this world while still suggesting tangible ideas to its audience. And that's probably my favorite things about it. The movie ends on a question, one of the characters asking, "Who am I?" And I'm very curious if any of you have seen it. What's your opinion on it? There's a lot of ideas you can latch onto. It's just ripe for getting your friends together, watching it, and having a little film discussion after. Also, I gotta just compliment the Blu-ray. This is distributed by Mill Creek, who's had a bit of a checkered past. I remember some years ago I bought their Last Action Hero Blu-ray and was stunned to see there were no subtitles. Years ago, Mill Creek was synonymous with cheap, but they've really made a name for themselves, and I'm so happy to see here that there are subtitles, not just for, as you expect, to reflect the Japanese, but there's also dub titles for the English dub on it. 2 subtitle tracks. Not even big animation distributors like Funimation would do that. Even Death Note, which has a famous dub, doesn't have subtitles that reflect the dub. So even if it's not lush with special features, I really gotta hand it to Mill Creek with this one. Next up is contender for worst film of the year. It's definitely one of the worst I've seen this year. It's a Netflix original animation, Fixed. Bull is a dog who's about to be fixed. Catching the poor mutt running away from home, Bull's one-note pals decide to give his gems, that means his balls, one last night on the town. Can the plot start before you switch over to Wednesday Season 2? This was animated by Sony Animation and then later sold to Netflix, and I couldn't help but recall the history between those two studios. Sony has had a history of trying to pawn off its crap to Netflix that it's too embarrassed to even cover its face in front of a theater and toss the film reel through the doors. They tried to sell Slender Man to them, it didn't work. They tried to pass off Holmes and Watson and Netflix wasn't biting. But with Fixed, Netflix finally took the bait. The movie is directed by animation legend Genndy Tartakovsky, who's known for Dexter's Laboratory and Samurai Jack, who's also apparently just discovered Newgrounds. Or at least that's how it feels. It's the same unfunny raunch. Cartoon dog says curse equals funny. Oh, and add in some genitals too for good measure. It's one joke throughout the whole movie, and it gets stale before you even press play. It was stale by the first few seconds of the trailer.
Me.
Normal. Unfunny, raunchy comedy. Dog. It feels like it was made for the people who got told cartoons are for babies in high school and who've had a chip on their shoulder ever since. And on top of that, it suffers from what I call last laugh syndrome, where there always has to be one extra bit of dialogue to squeeze something out of the situation. One example is when the antagonist gets poetic justice in the most predictable way possible, like seriously, within the first few minutes he was introduced, I saw it coming, and then, as if that wasn't enough, one of the other characters has to say, "Oh, karma's a like, oh wow, the karmic retribution wasn't funny until you actually spelled it out loud for us." And that last laugh syndrome results in the movie's pace feeling like it takes forever and ever, and it's not just contained to the movie as a whole, down to the dialogue, it drags. Hearing the characters' prolonged, unfunny banter, I just had the image of a knife prodding at the last jelly in the jelly jar, seeing it slowly drip out. That's what it felt like. I only liked one character, the love interest Honey, who counter to Bull, who falls into this Adam Sandler type, aka the lovable loser batting above his league. But Honey is like the subversion of that. She is a show dog and has a crush on Bull, but doesn't feel like he would love her because she's so elite. It's a neat subversion of the typical trope. But unfortunately, the movie falls into the same pitfalls that are the trite tropes of romantic comedies. Down to the love interest finding the main character with another girl, leading to a misunderstanding that is so old even cavemen could probably predict this turn. It's plagued with cliches, predictable, and on top of that, just straight up lazy. There are 2 times in the story where characters inexplicably find where another is. The characters are so flat, from one of them finding a love interest who exposits what his character is supposed to be, to the kind of charming social media dog who begins to feel insecure he acts so much like a human for about a minute until him acting like a human saves his crew. Wow, 1 minute for a character arc. That's record time. Also, did I mention that the two characters I cited only have these narratives introduced in the last half hour of the movie? Yeah, the animation looks nice, but how much is that a silver lining on a plate on which you're served hot garbage? There's a sense of self-serving, or if I were to make a pun, self-servicing exhibitionist hedonism to the film. The script is chock full of hackneyed rubbish that it feels little more than an excuse to fling animated testes across the screen. And I think about the people who demonize studio executives like, oh no, they're marching in wanting the film to be more watchable and enjoyable. And that's not to say there's no such thing as wrongful executive meddling. There is, but for a movie like this, I think it pays to put the artists on a leash. Admittingly, if I were given the full reins to a movie, I bet probably most people wouldn't like it, and I think that goes for a lot of artists. Oh yes, I'm going to bring up Dead or Alive again, but I just love Takashi Miike because in Dead or Alive 1, he'll have a scene where a guy is deconstructing socialism, supporting the movie's theme, and then Miike will be like, alright, yeah, I'll put in a scene where someone's in a kiddie pool of their own poo. And that's the balance. A good film should serve more than the director. A good film can't be all a kiddie pool of poo. It can definitely be some of the time, but not all the time. And that's what fixed is to me. Check out my review of Dead or Alive if you want to know more. Now, before I get into the last film I watched this month, I'm going to go into some of the TV shows I watched. I finished Crypto the Superdog, which I had started with my girlfriend because of the new Superman movie that came out. I expected to not be super into this show because it has a reputation for being more juvenile than the other DC shows at the time, but because of it, it's really funny and actually really chill. It's not an action show, it's more about the cute, fun characters. And I love how the character designs and even the silly classic cartoon sound effects harken back to Hanna-Barbera. It has a unique, focused direction in that sense. And next up with my girlfriend, we watched Cornel and Bernie, or Watch My Chops for UK viewers. It features a genius talking dog who, he's my current autistic obsession. The show's pretty fun, it has a beautiful pop art aesthetic, and I like that Cornel and Bernie can both be jerks to each other. There is no one antagonizer, and I like that it can flip and flop like that in episodes, even if usually Bernie's the one causing the conflict. But Cornel steals the show. He's so cute, I love his voice.
It's me that you want, Bernie. I'm all yours. Come and get me.
And I like the episode where he's actually trying to be a good friend to Bernie because I just want to hug him. I've also been considering getting my girlfriend in a call for a video to talk about some of the shows we watched this year more extensively, so tell me if you want to see that. But lastly, I'm going to talk about What's Up Connection, Masashi Yamamoto's film following Robinson's Garden. The poor Hong Kong-dwelling Chi family wins a trip, sending its members to different Asian countries. When the teenage Chi Gao-shin loses his wallet and ticket back while in Japan, him and his tour guide must scrounge for a way to get him back home. I love the first half of this movie. It has this sort of urban, underground club feel, especially through the music, and it represents the main characters so well. It's energetic, and being stuck in another country is a simple but good conflict. The characters are also quirky and quite funny. Speaking of funny, it knows when to cut at a joke. The editing and pace as a whole stood out to me coming from Robinson's Garden, which that film lingered and was too slow for my taste. The characters are surprisingly chill with each other, even when confronting the thieves, but this calm attitude accentuates the humor between them. There's also this really cool cinema verte achieving technique that, as a fan of postmodernism and found footage, I really got into. At one point, to set the scene for this poor alley, the camera starts filming people who are reacting to it. Stuff like, hey, can I film you? Oh, okay, and people reacting like, oh no, don't get my face. And it was such a cool, unique feel to establish a scene by breaking the fourth wall and practically transporting us to what's really there. I mentioned Mike earlier, and some moments in this movie really reminded me of him, like the feel of the person behind the camera is going rogue. At some points in the movie, a woman character is randomly portrayed by a man? Like, what? I love weird stuff like this, but as much as I was into the movie, it took a downturn at the third act. And you might be thinking, well, so what? That can't bog down the movie too much, it's just the end. But oh no. The third act isn't the climax. This is not a 3-act movie. This is a 5-act movie. Halfway through the movie, the main character gets away back into Hong Kong, but it felt so rushed that I scratched my head thinking, what, did I miss something? But once they get back, a business mogul reveals that his plan was to give them this trip to other Asian countries so he can survey the land to build this huge skyscraper which will house several offices and businesses. Weirdly, the Japanese characters come along too to Hong Kong, but they felt for the most part inconsequential, and I would say the first half of the movie felt that way too. It's like being thrusted into a whole other story. The slower second half hit me like whiplash. I wasn't into it by then, not to mention the main character who I had grown to like practically fell out of orbit. I'm not saying every narrative needs to be a 3-act structure. That's too neoclassical, at least philosophically speaking, for me. I cheer on Yamamoto's experimentation, but the structure would have worked better had there been more threads connecting the two storylines. It's kind of like an inverse of Robinson's Garden, whereas that movie seemed big at first with the hippie commune and all its people, until narrowing its focus onto the main character. This movie starts off with a nice focus, a pretty normal focus on the main character and his crew, before heading into the second storyline and expanding the focus to the whole family. There are certain Asian politics that flew over my head, but other things stood out to me. There's a shack in which the main character lives that is filled to the brim with Western characters like Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny. I even noticed there's a Snorks plush there. Like, dang, I didn't think they'd be a fan of it over there. And he talks about his trip to Japan and where he wants to go, and one of the places he really wants to see is Tokyo Disneyland, which is really funny and interesting that he wants to go over to Japan to see not a bit of Japanese culture, but a bit of Western culture that he's already at least seen a bit of being in a house that's just filled to the brim with Western cartoon characters. An important theme and idea of the movie is globalization and culture. Even if I'm not adept to the political landscape in which this movie was made, there are still some aspects that stood out to me. One that comes to mind is the irony of the family, where they fight tirelessly to keep their home from the evil businessman, but by the end, when a boy hears that China wants to take Hong Kong, and he relays that to his grandmother, the grandmother says, whatever, don't worry about it won't affect us. The irony and humor of that was not lost on me and resulted in strong, poignant satire that people are typically politically selfish, that in regards to the bigger picture, they just concern themselves with whatever will affect them. Another interesting part of the movie is the symbolism in one scene. A pet bird who's been caged is finally let free, but one of the characters said he shouldn't be let free. A pet bird set free doesn't really know how to survive, and immediately he's found dead. And that interested me because it seemed so fast. I'm not sure if I even believe that claim, but it felt very exaggerated, which stood out to me because it means that the thematic implications of this supersede the need for realism in the movie. It's the way of the film saying this is important, and I was stroking my chin wondering what this exactly means. What I came upon is that people, even if they're free, don't exactly know how to use their freedom, which would fit the political theming of the movie, but I'm curious to hear what you think about it. If any of my viewers have watched it, which I doubt, except for maybe the one who commented on my Robinson's Garden review, which, yes, not to be weird, but I remember because I love anyone who supports and engages with me and what I talk about. I make an effort to commit to memory anyone who's supported me, because I'm really grateful for it, and you're part of the reason why I make these videos, because I love to get people thinking about movies. So have that discussion in the comment section, tell me what you've been watching, tell me what you think about what I've been watching. Either way, if you watch this at all, I appreciate the support, and take care.